Right now, something is happening that should be impossible. The United States is acting like it's preparing for a global war, without ever saying it out loud. And the reason has nothing to do with Ukraine, Taiwan, or the Middle East. Russia just collapsed, and not a military defeat, not a coup, a full systemic collapse. And the most dangerous moment isn't the collapse itself. It's the first 72 hours after Moscow goes dark. Here's why. Right now, as you're watching this, there are 17 American carrier strike groups spread across 3 oceans. And that number should literally be impossible. The United States Navy only has 11 carrier strike groups. So what's happening? Well, in this timeline, we're watching something that defense analysts have been quietly terrified about for decades. A scenario where NATO's entire deterrence structure gets flipped on its head because of one insane variable that nobody saw coming. Russia just collapsed. Not lost a war, not regime change, but full societal collapse. And here's the thing, that's not the scary part. The scary part is what happens in the 72 hours after Moscow goes dark. Look, we've all seen the scenarios where World War III starts with an invasion or a nuclear exchange or some calculated move by a superpower. But this is different. This is what happens when a nuclear-armed state with over 6,000 warheads just stops functioning. No government, no chain of command, no control, and suddenly every major power on Earth is racing toward the same territory for completely different reasons, and none of them are talking to each other. Within 6 hours of the Kremlin going offline, American satellites pick up movement from China's Western Military District. Except they're not heading toward Taiwan like everyone expected. They're moving north, toward Siberia, and they're moving fast. 30 divisions, armor and mechanized infantry, crossing into what used to be Russian territory. The Chinese government releases a statement about stabilizing the region and securing nuclear materials. Sounds reasonable, right? Except here's what they're really after. Siberia holds roughly 30% of the world's natural resources. Oil, natural gas, rare earth minerals, timber, fresh water. We're talking about resources worth literally tens of trillions of dollars, and there's suddenly no one defending them. But wait, it gets crazier. Turkey closes the Bosphorus Strait completely, just shuts it down. No military vessels in or out of the Black Sea, which means the US 6th Fleet is now trapped. Turkey's president makes this move claiming it's about preventing conflict, but honestly, this is the play of the century. With Russia gone, Turkey just became the sole gatekeeper to Central Asia, and they know it. Meanwhile, the Russian Black Sea Fleet, what's left of it, has maybe 48 hours of operational capacity before they run out of fuel and supplies. Some captains are already negotiating asylum deals. Others are going rogue. Now here's where things get absolutely wild. Japan announces it's reclaiming the Kuril Islands. Not asking, not negotiating, just taking them. The Japanese Self-Defense Force, which is low-key one of the most advanced militaries on the planet, lands troops on Itorofu Island at dawn. There's no Russian resistance because there's no Russia to resist. And suddenly Japan controls strategic territory that gives them a massive advantage in the Pacific. South Korea sees this and starts making moves towards Sakhalin Island. Even Finland, historically neutral Finland, mobilizes troops toward their eastern border. Everyone's realizing the same thing at the same moment. There's a power vacuum the size of the world's largest country, and whoever moves first gets to reshape the global order. But here's what makes this scenario different from any other World War III situation. Nobody actually wants to fight each other. China doesn't want to fight America, America doesn't want to fight China, Turkey doesn't want to fight NATO, but everyone's so terrified of everyone else getting there first that they're all moving anyway. It's like the worst prisoner's dilemma in human history, except with nuclear weapons scattered across 11 time zones. The Pentagon goes to DEFCON 2 for the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Not because there's an immediate threat, but because nobody knows where Russia's mobile nuclear launchers are. There are at least 20 rail-based missile systems that were operational when Moscow went dark, and now they're just out there somewhere in the vastness of Siberia, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. The European Union calls an emergency session. And this is where you see the cracks in NATO that have been forming for years suddenly split wide open. Poland wants immediate action to secure the western Russian border. Germany's calling for restraint and negotiation. France is making independent moves in Central Asia where they've got economic interests. The UK is coordinating with the US, but also hedging their bets. For the first time since World War II, there's no unified European position on an existential threat. And that hesitation, those 72 hours of debate, that's what allows everything else to spiral. India makes a play that nobody sees coming. They send peacekeeping forces into Kazakhstan. Officially, it's about protecting Indian nationals and securing nuclear facilities. Realistically, India just claimed a massive sphere of influence in Central Asia and positioned themselves as a bridge between Chinese and Western interests. It's a genius move, and it happens so fast that by the time anyone objects, there are 50,000 Indian troops on the ground. Pakistan immediately mobilizes in response, not toward India, but toward Afghanistan, because they're not about to let India encircle them. Iran sees both moves and starts pushing into Turkmenistan. The global economy loses $18 trillion in market value in a single trading day. Oil hits $300 a barrel, because nobody knows who controls Russian energy infrastructure anymore. The European energy crisis that started in the 2020s now becomes an existential threat. Germany's facing rolling blackouts. France is rationing natural gas. The UK is implementing emergency protocols that haven't been used since World War II. And that's just Europe. China's entire economic model depends on energy security they thought they had guaranteed through Russia. Now they're in Siberia with tanks, trying to secure it themselves before someone else does. Here's what happens in week 2. Small-scale skirmishes break out along multiple fronts, not because anyone declared war, but because you've got Chinese troops, Japanese troops, Korean troops, and American advisors all operating in overlapping territory with no coordination and no rules of engagement. A Chinese helicopter strays into Japanese-claimed airspace over the Kurils. Japan scrambles fighters. There's a tense standoff. No shots fired, but it's so close that both sides have their fingers on triggers. This scenario plays out 17 times in the first month. 17 times the world comes within minutes of an accidental war between major powers. The humanitarian crisis is beyond anything the modern world has seen. 140 million Russian citizens are suddenly living in a failed state. No functioning government, no services, no security. Regional warlords start claiming territory. Some Russian military units stay loyal to commanders who declare themselves governors of entire provinces. Others just dissolve. The refugee crisis makes Syria look small. Millions start moving west toward Europe, east toward China, south toward the Central Asian states. Every border becomes a crisis point. What makes this scenario truly terrifying isn't the violence, it's the uncertainty. Every major power is operating blind, making irreversible decisions based on incomplete information and the assumption that everyone else is more aggressive than they actually are. The security architecture that prevented World War III for 70 years, mutual assured destruction, clear spheres of influence, established communication channels, all of that depended on stable nations with rational actors. Remove one major piece, and suddenly nobody knows the rules anymore. We're watching something that shouldn't be possible. A world war that nobody wanted, nobody planned for, and nobody can stop, all because the systems we built to prevent conflict assumed the players would stay on the board. Sometimes the most dangerous scenarios aren't the ones where someone starts a war. They're the ones where the absence of war becomes impossible to maintain.